Tuesdays with Morrie, taking attendance. I flew to London a few weeks later. I was covering Wimbledon, the world's premier tennis competition, and one of the few events I go to where the crowd never boos and no one is drunk in the parking lot. England was warm and cloudy, and each morning I walked the tree-lined streets near the tennis courts, passing teenagers queued up for leftover tickets and vendors selling strawberries and cream. Outside the gate was a newsstand that sold a half-dozen colorful British tabloids featuring photos of topless women, paparazzi pictures of the royal family, horoscopes, sports, lottery contests, and a wee bit of actual news. Their top headline of the day was written on a small chalkboard that leaned against the latest stack of papers and usually read something like, "Diana in row with Charles," or "Gaza to team, give me millions." People scooped up these tabloids, devoured their gossip, and on previous trips to England I had always done the same. But now, for some reason, I found myself thinking about Morrie whenever I read anything silly or mindless. I kept picturing him there in the house with a Japanese maple on the hardwood floors, counting his breath, squeezing out every moment with his loved ones, while I spent so many hours on things that meant absolutely nothing to me personally. Movie stars, supermodels, the latest noise out of Princess Di or Madonna or John F. Kennedy Jr. In a strange way, I envied the quality of Morrie's time, even as I lamented its diminishing supply. Why did we bother with all the distractions we did? Back home, the O.J. Simpson trial was in full swing, and there were people who surrendered their entire lunch hours watching it, then taped the rest so they could watch more at night. They didn't know O.J. Simpson, they didn't know anyone involved in the case, yet they gave up days and weeks of their lives, addicted to someone else's drama. Isn't that so true? This book came out before reality television, popular vloggers and stuff like that. I remember what Morrie said during our visit. The culture we have does not make people feel good about themselves, and you have to be strong enough to say if the culture doesn't work, don't buy it. This was also before cell phones became so addicting to people. Morrie, true to these words, had developed his own culture long before he got sick. Discussion groups, walks with friends, dancing to music in the Harvard Square Church. He started a project called Greenhouse where poor people could receive mental health services. He read books to find new ideas for his classes, visited with colleagues, kept up with old students, wrote letters to distant friends. He took more time eating and looking at nature and wasted no time in front of TV sitcoms or movies of the week. He had created a cocoon of human activities, conversation, interaction, affection, and it filled his life like an overflowing soup bowl. I had also developed my own culture, work. I did 4 or 5 media jobs in England, juggling them like a clown. I spent 8 hours a day on a computer, feeding my stories back to the States. Then I did TV pieces, traveling with a crew throughout parts of London. I also phoned in radio reports every morning and afternoon. This was not an abnormal load. Over the years, I had taken labor as my companion and had moved everything else to the side. In Wimbledon, I ate meals in my little wooden work cubicle and thought nothing of it. On one particular crazy day, a crush of reporters had tried to chase down Andre Agassi and his famous girlfriend, Brooke Shields, and I had gotten knocked over by a British photographer who barely muttered, "Sorry," before sweeping past, his huge metal lens strapped around his neck. I thought of something else Morrie had told me. So many people walk around with a meaningless life. They seem half asleep, even when they're busy doing things they think are important. This is because they're chasing the wrong things. The way you get meaning into your life is to devote yourself to loving others. Devote yourself to your community around you, and devote yourself to creating something that gives you purpose and meaning. I knew he was right. Not that I did anything about it. At the end of the tournament and the countless cups of coffee I drank to get through it, I closed my computer, cleaned out my cubicle, and went back to the apartment to pack. It was late. The TV was nothing but fuzz. I flew to Detroit, arrived late in the afternoon, dragged myself home, and went to sleep. I woke to a jolting piece of news. The unions at my newspaper had gone on strike. The place was shut down. There were picketers at the front entrance and marchers chanting up and down the street. As a member of the union, I had no choice. I was suddenly, and for the first time in my life, out of a job, out of a paycheck, and pitted against my employers. Union leaders called my house and warned me against any contact with my former editors, many of whom were my friends, telling me to hang up if they tried to call and plead their case. "We're going to fight until we win," the union leaders swore, sounding like soldiers. I felt confused and depressed. Although the TV and radio work were nice supplements, the newspaper had been my lifeline, my oxygen. When I saw my stories in print each morning, I knew that, in at least one way, I was alive. Now it was gone, and as the strike continued, the first day, the second day, the third day, there were worried phone calls and rumors that this could go on for months. Everything I had known was upside down. There were sporting events each night that I would have gone to cover. Instead, I stayed home, watched them on TV. I had grown used to thinking readers somehow needed my column, and I was stunned at how easily things went on without me. After a week of this, I picked up the phone and dialed Morrie's number. Connie brought him to the phone. "You're coming to visit me," he said, less a question than a statement. "Well, could I? How about Tuesday?" "Tuesday would be good," I said. "Tuesday would be fine." Flashback. In my sophomore year, I take 2 more of his courses. We go beyond the classroom, meeting now and then just to talk. I have never done this before with an adult who is not a relative, yet I feel comfortable doing it with Morrie, and he seems comfortable making the time. "Where shall we visit today?" he asks cheerily when I enter his office. In the spring, we sit under a tree outside the sociology building, and in the winter, we sit by his desk. Me in my gray sweatshirts and Adidas stinkers, Morrie in Rockport shoes and corduroy pants. Each time we talk, he listens to me ramble. Then he tries to pass on some sort of life lesson. He warns me that money is not the most important thing, contrary to popular view on campus. He tells me I need to be fully human. He speaks of the alienation of youth and the need for connectedness with society around me. Some of these things I understand, some I do not. It makes no difference. The discussions gives me an excuse to talk to him. Fatherly conversation I cannot have with my own father, who would like me to be a lawyer. Morrie hates lawyers. "What do you want to do when you get out of college?" he asks. "I want to be a musician," I say, "a piano player." "Wonderful," he says, "but that's a hard life." "Yeah, a lot of sharks." "That's what I hear." "Still," he says, "if you really want it, then make your dreams happen." I want to hug him, to thank him for saying that, but I am not that open. I just nod instead. "I bet you play piano with a lot of pep," he says. I laugh. "Pep?" He laughs back. "Pep, what's the matter? They don't say that anymore?" That was Tuesdays with Morrie, taking attendance. I like that word pep. I use that once in my book too. My book is called Gonzo Education. I use that term pep. I use a lot of old-fashioned words in my book. But this was Tuesdays with Morrie, and I hope you enjoyed my reading. My name is Gregory Brandt. Feel free to like and subscribe and check out my other channels.